Laughing aloud now, magic in the air. Wands roll around us, cast away our care. Friends in the hallways, adventures we find. Spells and enchantments, trouble on our mind. That's so wizard, life is a spell we know. We're casting joy and glow, that's the wizard show. Mischief in the classroom, potions gone astray. Flying through the quad, now brighter every day.
I love that song. I don't know why, I just do. What's up, everybody? It's time for That's So Wizard. That's So Wizards is filmed in front of a live studio audience consisting of Steve the Cat. How are you? It's Wednesday. It's 8 o'clock on the dot, the 4th day of September 2024. It's 77 degrees and hazy here at Site B. And it's time for our Wednesday Wizards of the Coast news. Strangely enough, the number one story for Wizards of the Coast is not the fact that the Player's Handbook came out yesterday, but this piece of art. Now, I briefly talked about it in a vlog yesterday where I didn't really understand why people are upset about it. But I don't think I made my point clear, so let's just go over it again. For art that exemplifies what we consider Dungeons and Dragons, no, this is a D&D art. No, it doesn't. It's not adventure. It's not action. It's not excitement. It's not danger. It's not good versus evil. It's guys at a birthday party or at a cheesecake factory. For 2024 Dungeons and Dragons 6th edition, this art is perfectly fine, especially since this art is in the cookbook and not in the Player's Handbook. I don't know if I mentioned that yesterday, and it seems that a lot of the other people who are talking about this art are sort of either don't know that it's from the cookbook or choosing not to mention that it's from the cookbook in order to raise the level of their rage. So this is from the Heroes Feast Dungeons and Dragons cookbook, the new one that's coming out. So for a cookbook, this is perfectly fine. For 2024 Dungeons and Dragons art, perfectly fine. We've seen the art that they want to do for 2024 D&D. This is perfectly fine. It's not D&D. It's not action fantasy, but for what it is, it's perfectly fine. But that's not what we're upset about. No. We're upset about the inconsistency of the food on the table because it's not historically accurate. Now, I wanted to be sure this is what people were up in arms about, so I read a few of the Twitter posts. I listened to a couple of the YouTube videos that people have put up on it, and it generally seems that the main reason people are raging at this one specific piece of art, again, is not that it's not D&D. It doesn't sell D&D. It sells 2024 D&D perfectly fine. It sells a cookbook perfectly fine. But if you mean it's not similar to the art we're used to from the past 50 years, you're absolutely correct. But no. That's not where they're upset. They're upset again because it's not consistent or historically accurate. Well, that particular vegetable wasn't discovered until that year, so there's no way that they would have that at the table in the Middle Ages because, they weren't trading with that part of the world yet, so it's not historically accurate. When has Dungeons and Dragons ever been historically accurate? It has guys wearing nothing but a loincloth and a sword and laser guns. Literally, the very first adventure had a computer, an android, and laser guns. It is not historically accurate. It is not consistently accurate. Dungeons and Dragons never has been historically accurate. There are historically accurate medieval fantasy role-playing games out there. RPG Pundit has a ton of them. So if you're looking for historically accurate D20 fantasy, I would suggest picking up any one of Pundit's amazing books or picking up Pendragon or any of the other games over the past 50 years that have tried to create historically accurate medieval Europe during the Dark Ages, which is sort of, I guess, the time period D&D kind of maybe sort of takes place. But in regards to it being historically accurate by D&D standards, no. And as far as it being consistent to D&D standards, okay, so you're willing to accept the fact that there's a high-level undead wizard who builds a mega structure filled with deadly traps simply because he was bored. But the fact that this guy's eating tacos, that upsets you. Oh no, the tacos do not fit in D&D. Of course they do. Why wouldn't they? It's D&D. If you've got tieflings and half dragons and half elves, but tacos, you draw the line at tacos. All right. So that's the number one story, which is weird. Now, because that's the number one story, you might have missed the fact that the Player's Handbook came out yesterday. So September 3rd was the official release of the Player's Handbook, as long as you don't count the 3,000 that were available at Gen Con at the end of over my August 4th weekend, or the ones that some of the stores have already had, because apparently Target has already had theirs. And I've been told that several small retailers are, wow, look at all the comments I'm getting already. Is that a taco? Is that a taco? Yes. It's from the cookbook. Yeah. Historic of what? I know. That's what people are upset about. They're not upset that it's not D&D art. It's everything I've seen is it's not historically accurate. Is that a historically, is that a halfling? I don't know if the halflings host. I think it's, my best guess is they're either at the D&D version of Cheesecake Factory or at their D&D version of a buffet at Las Vegas, because those are all things I've seen on the Cheesecake Factory menu and at a buffet in Las Vegas. So yeah, it's out. It's out. Player's Handbook out on the shelves of D&D Beyond store and Amazon. And I guess, unless you're the, that one guy who didn't get one of the 3,000 copies that were available at Gen Con, because Stephen Glicker took them all. Or you aren't aware that your friendly local game store already had them and Target already had them, because God forbid Wizards of the Coast actually obeys something as simple as street date. Bureau of Weight and Measures? What the fuck do they do? That's not even a thing. Street date? That hasn't been a thing since, what, the 70s? We're not going to get in trouble. But in case you have absolutely no interest in purchasing the Player's Handbook whatsoever, i.e. 90% of the tabletop role-playing game community, they've put the rules for free on D&D Beyond. They just haven't put them on free for D&D Beyond in any way that's even remotely manageable. So it's not a PDF that you can download or an SRD that you can download. No, you have to play Wizards of the Coast Battleship here to find the thing you want, and then cross-reference it with the thing you want, and then go to the page. I don't know, can't hear this one. And then this will tell you that one specific section. So it's a glossary on the comptometer. Now, I would rather, I think, have it as a complete PDF that we could download, but of course you can't download because that's taking money away from D&D Beyond. Also, it's a very limited version. So if you want the full thing, you've got to go and get the real actual book. The book that, of course, you don't need because it's 100% backwards compatible. So, yeah, this isn't the SRD because the SRD won't be out to 2025. This is Player's Handbook Battleship. We got to go, and find the thing you want, and then click the button, and it'll bring up the thing, but only a limited version of the thing. And then you got to go through that to find the thing that you want. And if it's not there, you got to click another button, which will lead you to another thing. And eventually, after going through the swamp of D&D Beyond, it will basically lead you to a link that says, hey, why don't you just buy the real book that you don't need because it's backwards compatible. And it is a new edition. Honest. But why stop there? Oh, no. Our friends at Wizards of the Coast want to make sure that everything is available to you as long as you're willing to deal with D&D Beyond. So remember they said they weren't going to make character sheets anymore? Well, they're not. Their character sheets are on D&D Beyond now. But that's okay because you can go to D&D Beyond and get this character sheet. It's on the D&D Beyond website. Except if you go to the link, it takes you to a doc that I guess you can download. So that's different for them. So now we can take a look at the character record sheet. And it looks like a character record sheet. So I clicked the link and it took me here. I suppose your mileage will vary. Looks the same. It's not the best free character sheet I've seen for D&D 5e. There's plenty of better ones that are free that are online. It's interesting that they made it accessible via this method, which goes against everything else on the channel. But I guess they're trying to repair the damage that they acquired over the past 2 weeks because of the whole thing with the your spells are gone, no spells are back, no spells are gone, no spells are back, no spells are gone, but you can get them back by doing a particular thing. It sounds like there was a lack of communication recently at Wizards of the Coast. Segue. Because the director of Wizards of the Coast left Wizards of the Coast to pursue a career, wait for it, to pursue a career in politics. The director of communications, Greg Tito, left the offices of Wizards of the Coast after 9 years, left a scathing so long and thanks for all the fish, and has gone to work for the Secretary of State's office in Washington. This individual willingly chose to, sorry, my phone's ringing, to work for politics rather than deal with Wizards of the Coast. How bad is Wizards of the Coast that your choice for a step up is to work for Seattle's politics? Wizards of the Coast is uglier than Seattle politics as far as Greg Tito is concerned. And what was Greg Tito's parting message? What is the scathing thing? What is Greg Tito's so long and thanks for all the fish comment? If you haven't seen it, Greg Tito posted on several places. Thanks. It feels good to do something that doesn't just line the pockets of the assholes. Shareholders. Thanks. It feels good to do something that doesn't just line the pockets of the assholes. He has been very critical of Wizards of the Coast, especially recently. So again, Greg Tito would rather work for the Secretary of State of Seattle than Wizards of the Coast. Because we lost our director of communications, that could explain the whole thing with the weird spell stuff. So if you remember, Wizards of the Coast announced, all the old spells are gone. Your characters will automatically be updated to the new stuff, whether you like it or not. Then they said, no. I see that you guys are confused and upset and comparing this to the last stupid thing we did. But what we meant to say is all the old spells are gone. They've been moved to the legacy, whatever. If you want to use an older version of a spell, magic item, or whatever, what you would have to do is you'd have to go to the legacy folder, put the spell in question into a homebrew file, then use that homebrew file to migrate the previous ruling of, web to your character record sheet. So you could go through the 3 steps to get this old spell back on your character record sheet if you prefer the way the old spell or the old magic item functioned. Well, that got upset. People got upset. And again, Wizards went, no. We're not communicating. Obviously, what we meant to say is we haven't changed a thing. I know there was some confusion due to miscommunication, but we never said we're taking the spells away. Nothing is different. If you want to use the old spells, they're there. If you want to use the new magic items, they're there. So that's the way things stood. So again, that sounds like not them trying to be insidious, as you know, like the Pinkertons, but just simply a lack of communications from part A to part B. There's nobody there to facilitate the conversation from the department that's on one end of the building to the department on the other end of the building. So one guy gets all uppity and posts one thing because he didn't communicate. Then somebody else sees what the first guy posted and is like, no, you need to change that. Changes it. But of course, there's no communication. So we all get upset because the director of communication is gone, along with, as we know, over 1,000 members of the staff. And that's why things like this happen. Again, this is not their usual evil machinations. This is just sheer lack of communication. So end of days, you can put the spells in, or you could just write them down on a piece of paper and ignore D&D Beyond. Ignore D&D Beyond, because we have seen Sigil at the D&D Direct. We know what to expect for the video game VTT that's coming up someday. We know that they are continuing to digify the content from what we know and love to this computer model. So far, this computer model feels a little iffy at best. I mean, again, took that guy 20 fucking minutes to get D&D Beyond to recognize his sword dud plus 1d6, which is something everybody else could just write down on a piece of paper in under 10 seconds. Plus one sword, plus 1d6. But D&D Beyond didn't understand that. And with all the new stuff they're doing to D&D Beyond, that's going to be even harder to get that. Because now, as one individual brought up in regards to trying to explain why this nonsense happened, D&D Beyond now has a couple thousand different iterations of the same thing. There's not just one description code for plus one sword. There's a couple hundred iterations, codes for plus one sword. And D&D Beyond gets confused. And then when you ask D&D Beyond to do something additional, like add plus 1d6 to this plus one sword, or use a pre-existing spell the way it was written previously, D&D Beyond gets confused. Which one? I've got 100. Which plus one sword? So I think it's going to be a while longer than Wizards wants to admit for them to reach that 2030 goal of completely digitization. Now, a lot of people are still saying that's bullshit, OGGM. They're still going to make physical books, despite the fact that they have been repeatedly saying to the otherwise. And I think if they are going to continue making physical books, it's going to follow one of two possible outcomes. Outcome number one, it will be the high-end alternate cover physical books with the faux leather thing and the really cool looking paper and the extra art and the really cool ink and the gold ink on the front and the alternate art. And it'll be like, here's a $90 to $100 super duper deluxe secret special book with $60 to $40 worth of actual content in it. But see, we actually still printed a physical book if you want the super special version. Now, for the regular version, I think they're going to follow what they've already been doing with a, Vecna would be a perfect example of, they will wait to a certain amount of pre-sales are made. And if the pre-sales reach a certain level, it is with it, then they can justify making a physical book. But if the pre-sales never reach the mark, let's say $500,000, then they won't print it. They'll just keep delaying it until it's worth their while to print it. So it might be months or even years before you see a physical copy of a book if the pre-sales says to them, it's not worth printing this out, not enough people want it. We can just delay it and delay it and delay it using whatever, excuse we want. Oh, the printer broke down. Oh, we're out of ink. Oh, they're on strike. Oh, the country's on fire. There was an earthquake. Kaiju stepped on the building. So we can't print it out until we know we can make enough money to print it out. Or we're only going to print out very limited runs for big boxes like Amazon and Target. But as in regards to how we're used to the past 50 years of getting product, no, they're going to discontinue that. It is in their best interest to go digital. It is financially sound. It's more profitable for them. There's less politics they have to deal with it, and we're running out of trees. And as I mentioned before, this is something everybody's going to do. Just for some reason, Wizards of the Coast have chosen to do it in the most stupidest, self-destructive way. It's kind of like they don't really care about D&D the game. What? They don't care about D&D the game? Oh yeah, they said at the last Hasbro polls and at D&D Direct, D&D the game doesn't make them money. D&D the IP, D&D the brand, that's what makes their money. They don't care about physical content D&D. They care about digital D&D. They want your DLC money. They want D&D to follow the same algorithm that games like Among Us and Fortnite and Path of Exile use, where you have this vibrant DLC community. And if you want anything, you have to pay Wizards bucks for it. You put real money into your D&D Beyond account. You use that real money to buy tokens. Then you use those tokens to purchase stuff from the online store. And these can be cosmetics. These will be, toys. These will be special figures. These will be special encounters. It's going to work like a DLC video game, but it's going to be a VTT, I guess. I don't know. It looks like a video game to me. So far. But, at the end, their VTT will be based around how much you buy to click on to the base frame. If you don't want to spend a dime, you're just going to spend the monthly fee to get the VTT and then the monthly fee to get onto D&D Beyond so you can use the VTT. But then you decide, I'm not spending any more money. There will be some basic layout, but there'll be a ton of stuff you can't do because all that's hidden behind paywalls. They've been very honest about. Now, we would probably understand this better, but of course, the communications director is gone. Let's just again remember that this guy chose to go work for politics rather than Wizards of the Coast and left a scathing so long and thank yous for all the fish parting comment that he has no mention of ever apologizing for. He does not plan to go back to work on Wizards of the Coast. That's how fucked up it was at Wizards. That's so Wizard!
Laughing aloud now, magic in the air. Wands roll around us, cast away our care. Friends in the hallways, adventures we find. Spells and enchantments, trouble on our minds.